Namaste, my name is Sanat Kumar. Welcome back to the Manana Podcast. Manana is a Sanskrit word that means reflection or contemplation. In this podcast, I'll be sharing my deep, insightful reflections for you to contemplate and hence live a life of fulfillment. I hope you find great value in today's episode.
Let me summarize all that we know so far. In part 1, we saw Advaita relative to Dvaita, and we saw that non-duality and duality are not at all contradictory, but they are truths at different planes of reality. In part 2, we busted some myths like the phrase Aham Brahmasmi, which does not translate to I am God, and we saw Advaita does not discard God, all that. In part 3, we understood the cause of such myths and discrepancies, and to know that we also looked into the major yogic paths. In part 4, we saw that the paths are not actually, different. They are kind of spectrums of light, and we saw why we need Advaita. Essentially, we could understand that one cannot separate Jnana Yoga from Advaita. Moreover, we saw that Advaita is the reality of nature. It has got nothing to do with one's religion. And also that it will be realized with awareness regardless of the path chosen. Understanding Advaita is the path of awareness. But what is awareness? In this blog, we will be looking into that. What is awareness? What is delusion or Māyā? Awareness is what we've realized, or we can say it is that which we know, which has been internalized. It's not just an acknowledgement of facts or accepting something for the sake of it. That would be believing, not knowing. It is a touch of truth or contact with truth. You know if you know. But more importantly, awareness is that which destroys Māyā. And what is Māyā? We've already discussed in the episodes Māyā and Delusions Part 2. Māyā means delusion. Delusion is like a bubble that contains its own truth. But once the bubble bursts, everything in it is subjected to the absolute truth. It might not be absolute truth, it depends on where it is sitting at the layer, right? Because there can be other bubbles on top of the bubble. Some of the delusions you might have come across or have seen might be when you look into a kaleidoscope, or when you are traveling on a highway with sun blasting heat, you see a puddle of water at a distance. But once you are there, you will notice no water there. I was in my village for my Brahmopadesha. The stories of the wild bison are a thing there. I woke up at midnight and it was pitch dark. There was no difference between eyes opened and closed, and this is not exaggeration. And it was not the center or the inner part of the house where I had slept in. What I heard was a heavy breathing of an animal, and accidentally my left hand touched something. I was surprised. Soon I understood it is a leg. I was scared to death. A bison had come inside the house and stood scarily still, like they usually do. That was my assumption. For a little while, I was hesitant to call anyone as there were so many there, and I did not want to embarrass myself. But after a few milliseconds of inspecting the leg with my hand, the fear peaked, and I called out for help. And there was light. All to realize that I didn't know that my brother had slept beside me, and it was his leg and his breathing type snoring. I think we've all experienced these kinds of delusions when we were kids. We've seen human or animal shadows in the dark, and when there is light, we realize it is various objects that are forming that particular shape. Understanding the Māyā or delusions is crucial. What happened to me that day in my village was one of the classic examples used to explain the workings of Māyā and awareness. In a dark room, one touches something tube-like with scale-like textures on it and assumes it is a snake. The person is scared to death. His mind and body start suffering. In fact, a person can be killed by making him believe that he is poisoned or will be killed or dead in general. But once there is light, the truth is revealed. It is actually a rope that he touched. The person is no more in delusion. There is no ignorance anymore, and there is no fear and suffering anymore. Even though it is a simple example, there are a few very important takeaways. 1. Assumptions are the core bodies of delusions. One should be mindful of assumptions and avoid them as much as possible. And here we saw how an assumption can be deadly. 2. ignorance breeds suffering and fear. 3. When there's light, there's no darkness. That is, once one is aware, there is no delusion or ignorance. 4. Awareness removes fear and suffering. 5. The person need not believe it is rope when there is light. He sees it as is. Acceptance is obvious and instantaneous with awareness. Even my story of mistaking my brother's leg for a bison's leg has all these characteristics, doesn't it? The assumption, fear, suffering in the dark, and liberating realization in light. It is through the same concept can we realize Advaita, the reality of nature and ourselves. It is through the same concept that it claims that duality that exists in our perception is only due to ignorance. When a simple three-sided kaleidoscope or collection of water vapors on the highway can create such powerful optical illusions, imagine how much of such occurrences make up our entire world, when there are many dimensions to life that we aren't even aware of. And optical illusions are such one form of delusion, right? We are not even talking about optical illusions here. So the next question then would be, how to remove ignorance or bust out of those delusion bubbles, or simply how to gain awareness. I'll probably have to write a dedicated blog for that, and to say it in short, or to say it in overly simplified version, it would be this. It is mainly through Viveka. And as mentioned in my previous episode, See, Think, Choose, and in the episode Viveka is built over time by consistent practice of Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana.
I hope you received excellent value in today's episode. To know more, head over to sanatkumarnahibi.com, and if you haven't already, check out my book The Flower of Fulfillment. Thank you for listening, and I wish you have a great day.